Hey everyone, good morning. Welcome to today's CREST webinar. My name is Bill Giannone, co-founder with Dick Wagner of the CREST Network. And today the topic is going to be how much is too much? The math behind referral fees. We talk about referral fees in our industry a lot. Let's just talk about the concept of referrals in general. Here's a quote from Mark Zuckerberg. People influence people. Nothing influences people more than a recommendation from a trusted friend. A trusted referral influences people more than the best broadcast message. A trusted referral is the holy grail of advertising. This certainly says a lot. It kind of explains in a nutshell what our whole purpose for referral marketing is. And it talks a lot about what Dick Wagner has been espousing for years about our industry, where we need to be able to get referrals and develop relationships with people who trust us. And that trusted referral is basically our golden ticket moving forward. Very important. Here's another quote from an American businessman. Now, again, I left the information up there about this gentleman, Bo Bennett. It says he was born in 1972. So this is not something that goes back 100 years like a Dale Carnegie mindset. This is something that's fairly contemporary. This gentleman is, just 50 years old or so. In sales, a referral is the key to the door of resistance. If you've ever heard Dick Wagner talk on any of his webinars or podcasts, or if you've seen him in person while he's coaching, it's a very important concept to understand that in every business and in every way of trying to get business, there's always what we call gatekeepers. There's a wall or a door of resistance that's put up. And that door of resistance is there on purpose because it's there to protect either the clients that we're trying to get to or these businesses that we want to use as our referral partners. So a referral is that key. It opens the door to resistance. If a homeowner doesn't trust us, but we're able to get in that door because one of their people that they trust refers us, that's basically the best possible way to work your business. In terms of getting referrals, most restoration companies make referral marketing the cornerstone of their overall marketing efforts. It's not that there's not a good way to do it other ways. It's just that referral marketing in our industry tends to work the best. We cannot advertise using normal methods that account for emotion or impulse buying. Like I always talk to different people about the different ways to buy. And, there's restoration companies that have tried TV and radio ads. They'll try billboards, they'll try flyers or those home mailers. And I always say that's a waste of money. And the reason is because think about it. Who advertises for things like that? Usually it's fast food places. It might be carpet cleaners. It might be furniture stores. It might be vacation destinations. You'll see a lot of those types of ads. You're not usually going to see ads for things involving, oh, if I ever need it, that's always good information to have. That's what restoration marketing would be. If you're going to do those kinds of marketing, if you're going to put billboards up, who's going to pay attention to that unless they already have a flood in their basement? And if they do, don't you think that they would have responded to that? Emotion or impulse buying is things like you see an ad for a juicy cheeseburger and the arrow says, stop right here in this strip mall. And you know what? You're driving, you're like, I'm getting off at this exit. I'm going to stop at this strip mall. That's what I mean about emotional or impulse buying. People, carpet cleaners, that's a very close industry to ours, but it's a totally different mindset in terms of the buyer. That is an impulse buy. People see an advertisement for carpet cleaning and they're like, I've been meaning to get my carpets cleaned. That is a call to action. We can't do that same thing in restoration and expect that we're going to get the same results. We're just never going to do that. Restoration marketing has to be powerful in terms of who do the people call or who do they reach out to help them out in that time of need. That's why referral marketing works really well in our industry. There's some stats here that show just how effective referral marketing is, especially with younger consumers and with families. Let's look at some of these stats. Now you'll see the picture I added in here comes from a company called Trust Pulse, and they are a marketing logistics agency that they track marketing tendencies throughout the country. 82% of American consumers ask for a product recommendation from friends and family before making a purchase. Now, friends does include trusted advisors, people like insurance agents, plumbers, people that uh, homeowners might have a relationship with. In this particular instance, those are included in here. 67%, or exactly two-thirds, say that they're more likely to make a purchase after a family or friend makes a suggestion. And now a really important one, 86% of Americans with a household income of over $100,000 seek recommendations before making a purchase. I say that's the most important one only because in our industry, we love to have recommendations come from homeowners. Renters are usually not capable of signing our work authorization to do work in a home if they're renting it. And the vast majority of people who own homes have incomes over $100,000. And I'm not trying to generalize, I'm just giving you statistics. So that's a very important number. 86% of those people will seek recommendations before making a purchase. So if they're going to just look for information about what to do in the case of a water loss, they're going to call their plumber in just about every case where water comes into their home, because in just about every case, that's because of either a broken pipe, broken water heater, things like that, some sort of mechanical failure. In rare instances, it might be wind-driven rain or foundational crack, things like that. But if they do get those instances, there's a really good chance that they're going to be calling other tradespeople. Let's say if it's a roof issue, they might be calling their roofer. So usually their roofer might be able to help them fix their roof, but they're probably not in the restoration industry either, unless they're one of those guys, you know who they are, who does a little bit of everything. But there's a really good chance that they might be referring a company out to them. These numbers align very much so with a lot of the companies that we work with at the CREST network in terms of how they get their business. Company we work with in Atlanta, 85% of their business comes from referral sources. So this number lines up exactly with their dynamics and their logistics from the last few years. So as we're talking about referrals and getting referrals as a restoration company, you want to do what we call B2B marketing. And B2B referrals are the most effective way to leverage relationships into a lot of business. Who are the B2Bs that we're talking about? Well, again, there's two different niches here. On the commercial side, you want to market B2B, but you want to be marketing directly to the people who are going to be calling you because their business suffers a loss. So on the commercial side of the business, if you're marketing for commercial work, you're looking at things like hotels, assisted living centers, warehouses, schools, office buildings, manufacturing centers, strip malls. Those are structures, those are commercial businesses that are going to be calling you when their business suffers a restoration loss. That's B2B marketing on the commercial side. On the residential side, you're not talking about marketing to every single homeowner. Those would be a B2C, business to consumer. But in the B2B side, you're going to be saying, who are the businesses that would be able to give me that kind of lead source? Obviously, we're talking about plumbers, insurance agents, things like that. To a lesser extent, carpet cleaners, HVAC companies, roofers, and then to a lesser extent than that, real estate companies, property management companies, things like that. That's what I refer to as B2B referrals. So then we have the whole issue of rewarding them. If we want to talk about rewarding our lead sources, which is a very, very natural tendency in our industry to want to reward the lead sources, that's a way to forge a win-win relationship. So we're now talking about referral fees, and we're going to talk about the topic of referral fees moving forward here. Are you allowed to give the referral source a fee for their assistance? We might jump to a very, very quick conclusion and say, of course we are. I just want you to know the answer is not that simple. Is the concept of a $500 referral bonus okay? If you go on the internet, you're going to hear lots of different stories. I just want you to understand, before you enter into any referral fee agreement, ask yourself two questions, and those questions are on the bottom. Is it legal and is it ethical? Because both of them can pose a very, very strong potential risk to your business. Let's talk about the legal side first. You should always check with your own state's rules. But in most states, you are legally allowed to give referral fees to plumbers and other contractors. There's no laws forbidding referral fees to be paid to those contractors. However, it is not legal to give referral fees to insurance adjusters or insurance agents ever. That's pretty standard as a national standard. And where's the line of delineation? Because a lot of times you might say an independent agent is kind of like a small businessman, just like a plumber. So what's the difference? Well, a plumber is a service provider, and an insurance agent, even though they do provide a service, they provide a product, they have to be registered and they have to pass certain certifications. And whenever you're dealing with just money or things related to money, like policies or legal agreements, as opposed to trade agreements, like our work authorizations or a plumber's contract, there's different legal standards that apply. You're usually not allowed to pay people who have what I call financial interests in the job that they're doing. If you go and you do a restoration on a job that a plumber refers you, the plumber has no financial interest in that. But if an insurance agent who makes a commission off of selling the policy, if they then make additional money by referring you, that's a conflict of interest. And it's very, very touchy for most jurisdictions. So they just make it illegal for somebody who's supposed to gain a level of trust from a homeowner based on the fact that they're making a financial profit off of a contract. So I know this is very wordy. It's just the way that law views insurance agents, insurance adjusters, as opposed to other contractors. Okay. So just leave it that way. If it's somebody who's working in the home as a contractor, usually it's legal in your state. You have to check state by state, but usually it's legal, but it's not legal to reward insurance agents or adjusters. So just remember that. Now we're going to talk about the ethical side. We're going to flip it over to the ethics. The ethics of referral fees is an entirely different conversation. Ethics means, are the plumbers and the roofers referring you because they truly believe you're the best, or are they doing it strictly because they want to put money in their pocket? If the answer is number one, then there usually should not be an ethical dilemma because they truly believe in you and they're doing what's best for the customer. If it's because you pay the most, that becomes what I call a slippery slope. And if you'll see on this picture, you'll see the little meme. You have a guy that's kind of sliding, sitting on top of the ethics, but the ethics is also angled, those letters, and he's kind of sliding because it is a slippery slope. I just want you to understand this is a stat that came about from a very trusted magazine that does ethical review. It's a legal magazine, but they do ethical review. And they, in 2022, they figured out, or they found out, that 81% of fee-based referral relationships devolve into unethical behavior. What do I mean by unethical behavior? It doesn't necessarily mean you as a restorer are practicing unethical behavior. It just means any one party is practicing unethical behavior. What could that be? Well, when I first got into this industry 15 years ago, I heard a story about a plumber and a restoration contractor out in the Rocky Mountain area that went to jail because their relationship devolved into a situation where the plumber was going into homes where the homeowner was complaining about the hot water heater, and they were actually caught on camera popping holes in the bottom of the water heater with a screwdriver in order to generate a loss for the restorer so that the plumber could get that referral fee. Now, why would a plumber ever do that? Well, we're going to talk about that when we talk about the amounts that you should be paying for referral fees. But just understand that would clearly be very, not just illegal, but unethical behavior. Other types of unethical behavior would be the plumber referring you out, making it sound like this is a very serious condition when it might be something the plumber could solve really simply. And then the restoration company getting there and turning a molehill into a mountain. And we all know that we might not be doing that in our industry, but we know a lot of people in our industry who have been accused of that. So we have to always be careful of that slippery slope of unethical behavior. Desperation leads people to cut corners, and black and white turns into a lot of gray. So just be really careful when we're talking about things like that, okay? We have to be able to balance our ethics with these other factors within our business. We want to be ethical. We want to have integrity. We want to be able to command respect for what we do. And obviously, we want to practice honesty. So these are 4 things, and you'll see from the directional poll, there are 4 things that go in different directions, but they're truly all part of one company mantra. Our company ethical stance and our integrity, respect, and honesty stances should all be pointing in the same direction. So what do you think? Do you have a current ethical dilemma? Do you think there is an ethical dilemma with paying out referrals at all? Now, on the internet, again, you're going to see some guys and they try to make a lot of money off of you by telling you never to pay referral fees. And you might hear these grandiose stories about, oh, I get plumber jobs all the time and I never have to pay a fee. Well, if that's the case, congratulations. I'm here on the world of reality telling you that that's probably not the reality in your neighborhood. That might be a very small niche reality for 1 or 2 restoration companies, but of the other 40,000 that are out there in this country, the vast, vast, vast majority of them, if they want to have a plumber referral system, they're going to have to pay the plumbers. So if you are going to say yes to plumber referral fees, you need to figure out several different policies, procedures, and financial answers before you enter into these relationships. Please have all of these answers in your head before you go out and start talking to plumbers. If you're talking to plumbers today and you haven't figured these things out, you're letting the plumber dictate the deal, you're going to lose. It's going to make you fail. Either the program will fail, or worse, your entire company will fail. So let's be smart about this. The first thing we need to do is we need to understand how we can structure our referral fees or commissions. Structuring those fees properly to allow your company to be both competitive and profitable is the toughest part of this whole endeavor. What do I mean by competitive and profitable? Well, competitive means there's a really good chance someone else or everybody else in your market who's a restoration company is already paying referral fees. So competitive means if they're all paying $500 and you decide you're going to pay $100 and you think that that's more than fair, there's a really good chance you're not going to get anybody to open the door or even listen to you. So you have to understand, you have to be in the ballpark. You can't be extremely lowballing and expect to get the work. Even if you read all of those posts on Restoration Rebels on Facebook and you decide that you're going to do it differently than everybody else, that's great. You might find 1 or 2 plumbers who are going to side with you and they're going to think that you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. What you're not going to do is you're not going to get enough business to make your plumber referral program the core base of your business. You're just not. So the first question you have to answer is how much? Because the profitable part of that competitive and profitable formula or balance is you have to be able to pay out enough without paying out too much. If you pay out too much, you can't make enough money off your jobs to be profitable, and you can't grow your company unless you're profitable. So the amount of money you're going to pay for a referral can have a huge impact on your bottom line. If you pay too little, you'll have very few leads. We discussed that already. You have to be competitive. But if you pay too much, you might go broke while blowing up your business. You might go from 10 leads a month to 40 leads a month, but you're going to go broke doing it. How much should you pay? This is always the question. You've got your plumber and he's working on a loss and he's got the ability to give you a call. And that's what you need to know. So, how much should you pay? Well, here's a little tidbit to give you a little base for understanding. Did you know that the national average pay for an experienced plumber in the United States right now is $36 an hour? So that means the average plumber makes $288 per day. Let's think about that now. In most, I'll call them major to mid-sized cities, in most major to mid-sized cities, the referral fee to a plumber is about $300 to $500. So in just about every case, if you're in a decent population center, your referral fee to your plumber is more than he makes for a full day's hard work. And what did he do? He literally got on the phone and spent 30 seconds calling you saying, hey, I'm standing in water, get down here. If you sign that job up and you decide to give him a referral fee, the baseline amount is between $300 and $500. I'm here to tell you that in most major cities, the top 20 or 30 cities in this country, that referral fee is at least double that. That referral fee in all the cities in Florida, in Atlanta, in all the cities in Texas, in all the cities in California, that referral fee is pushing $1,000, if not more. So just understand that's your reference point. So when we're talking about how much, you need to understand that. Traditionally, a guideline for referrals anywhere in most industries is 10%. That's called the cost of acquisition. And when you're doing traditional marketing, and Dick can speak much more about this than I can, but when you talk about traditional marketing or traditional referral fees in any industry, I don't care if it's real estate, I don't care if it's construction, any kind of business where somebody's going to get paid for referring a lead or a contact to them that results in business, 10% is kind of the number that's thrown out there. Hey, I'll give you 10%. I know in our industry, a lot of times, if a restoration company gets a job that might be too big for them and they give it to another company, that company will give the restoration company 10%, and we call it finder's fee sometimes. You'll hear that phrase used a lot outside of our industry. But the referral fee tradition is 10%. So in our industry, a lot of different people use 10% of the invoiced amount as a guideline for a referral fee as well. Again, the tradition years ago was a restoration job was about $5,000. So $500 was a fair number, both from the 10% guideline and from what I told you before about what happens in most of the decent sized cities. If your company executes water losses at high gross margins, meaning if you're able to do your work at 75% gross profits, this amount is very financially sound. But if you can't be 75% or more profitable, then you can't even afford 10%. And I'm telling you that because you need to be able to walk away with 65% or more from that job just to pay your bills, because our cost of operating a restoration company is much higher than most other traditional businesses when it comes to fixed cost. Our rent is higher based on our gross revenue than most companies because we need a bigger warehouse than most other companies do to store our stuff. Usually our salaries are higher because we need to have people sitting around not working for us. So that cost is a little higher. And our insurances, because of the type of work we do, our insurances, again, based on our revenue, is also much higher. So those things cause us to have higher carrying costs or fixed costs, and that's going to cause us to need to make a higher gross profit. So you need to be able to be making at least 75% before paying out that commission or that referral fee. If you don't know how to figure that out, send me a message, bill@thecrestnetwork.com, and I'll be able to help you with figuring out those numbers, okay? Remember, the referral fees can be paid in different ways as well. It's not just how much, it's how do you do it and how do you figure out something that works for you and for the plumber. The flat fee is what we just talked about, and we also talked about a percentage. We talked about either $300 to $500 or we talked about 10%. But there's other ways to do it. If you look at the picture to the left, there's 4 basic ways that you could do it there. And this comes from a company called Referral Hero, which is a company that is a coaching company for businesses that want to do B2B referral marketing. So you can offer a flat fee, which again is a specific amount. Number 2 says the percentages, and the percentages is giving them a percentage of the amount that you're getting. And the example they show in there is 10%. I know it's a little tough to read on there, but you could freeze this podcast if you're watching it on a recording, and you can zoom in if you'd like on the picture. There are other ways you can tier your fee based on the job sizes or multiple referrals over a given period of time. That's actually number 4. Number 3 in here says blitz, and it says putting a time limit on your referral program, and it uses the power of FOMO to get more buzz. And FOMO is, fear of missing out is the vernacular for FOMO. So that could be a contest style. I put that down at the bottom. So, hey, for the next 30 days, I'm going to give you twice the amount. I'm not a huge fan of using urgency approaches, because what you'll do is you'll get plumbers calling you every time a homeowner says, hey, I've got this tiny little stain under my sink. You and I both know that that's not something that we should be working on or trying to build our business on. But if the plumber thinks he's going to get paid just by the number of referrals, then he's going to be calling you with a bunch of garbage. So I want to stay away from those. Tiered bonuses, though, could work where you could say, for the first 3 jobs you give me in the month of January, I'm going to give you 10%, but then for every job over the 3 jobs, I'm going to give you 15%. Now it's really forcing them to look for work, but it still has to result in a decent job. And it's a really important concept, because if you're basing your business on, I need this guy to give me 3 jobs, and if he gives me more than 3 jobs, I'm really making good money. Because remember, at a certain point, after you've covered your costs for that month, you're now in the profit mode. If you build your business on 10 jobs a month and you could do 15 jobs a month, you're going to have a huge profit. That's a general concept I've talked about for a long, long time in terms of, building your budgets and profitability models. So that's why I like the tier approach, where you could do tiered bonuses for giving them more money, the more business they give you over a period of time. So it's not, let's just say, a FOMO blitz or contest. It's much more of a, if you give me good stuff consistently, I'm going to be able to pay you more. So if once we answer the question of how much, now we have to say how. There is more than one way to pay referral fees. Obviously, cash is king. We understand that every plumber would prefer to have cash, but just remember, when you run your business, you have to understand some things about the nuances. It's fine if you're just going to have a couple of plumbers and you're giving them a couple bucks here or there over the course of a year. There's a company we work with in the CREST network that last year did almost 1,200 restoration jobs. So let's just say 100 a month. And out of those 100 jobs a month, 80 of their jobs each month came from plumber referrals. So they built an incredible network within their home base that is all plumber related. And it's literally over 200 different plumbers gave them that work. So they did over 1,000 plumbing jobs. They obviously can't be giving out that much cash. If they're giving out $500 or $600 or $1,000, whatever that number is, it doesn't matter. You can't deduct $500,000 to $1 million of cash payments and not get in trouble with the IRS. So giving cash to a plumber is not tax deductible to your business. The actual IRS statute says that any payments to any individual or business over $600, you have to issue what they call a 1099 to that company if you want to make that a deductible expenditure. If you give cash to somebody, obviously as an employee, you're supposed to withhold tax. But if you're giving it to an individual or to a business as a business write-off, you have to issue a 1099 to them if that total amount for the whole calendar year exceeds $600. So you can't get away with saying, I gave him 500 in January, I gave him 500 in February. Nope, it's for the calendar year or your filing year. So you have to make sure that you do that. you can't hide that much money. So if you're growing your business and you have hundreds of referrals to pay, this is not a sustainable way. If you gave out $1 million in referrals and you can't write that off, you've got to pay $300,000 to $500,000 in tax on that money you gave away without any benefit to that money. And that's it, depending on your jurisdiction, that's how much you're going to pay in tax. That would be wasting money. Now, instead of paying, let's say 10% in referrals, now you're paying 15% referrals. That becomes really, really damaging to your business. So there are multiple programs that your company can use to document and pay referrals. Some of these options are you can do an ACH wire. You get their bank account information. You can wire the information right into their account. You can use debit cards. There are these different programs and these different companies out there that have reloadable debit card programs with very, very low fees. Normally, where they make their money is they'll ask you to have a simple bank account with their financial institution, and then you'll transfer money from that bank account into those debit cards. You'll give the debit card to the plumber, and then as long as the money is in the account, you can transfer the money over. So they'll basically make the money off of what they call the float, or the virtue that they're holding your money. That's how a bank pays you interest, because they use your money for other things. Well, this financial institution will basically be doing the same thing. But it's a good way to do it, where you can say to the plumber, hey, you've got a card. If you give me a job on a Wednesday and I decide I'm going to, pay you your fee as soon as you give me that job and we sign it up, then you could transfer the money the next day. And we're going to talk about that, because this is a legal, clean way to transfer the money. So we talked about how much, we talked about how, now we're going to talk about when, and that's just what I talked about. If you've committed to playing the plumber referral game, another thing to remember is you have to ask yourself, when are you going to make the payment? Are you going to pay when you get the lead? Are you paying for leads? Because some companies do that. They do what we call lead generation payment. Or do you pay only if you sign the job? So now that has to be a conversion to a job. If you do sign that job up, do you pay then, or do you pay when you invoice the job? And then finally, do you pay when you get paid? The old pay when paid. Now, there is no really right answer for this. Only you can decide. Obviously, if you're going to pay when you get the lead, that amount should be a lot lower than what it normally would be than if you get the job, because you're not going to close 100% of plumber leads. Generally around the country, the closing ratio, the closing rate for a normal company from a normal plumber is about 60%. If you get that ironed out and you start working with your plumbers and you educate them on what a good lead is and what a bad lead is, and you're not paying them for leads and you're paying them for closing the job, and you've got really good first responders, you can get that number as high as 75 to 80%. And if you're talking about that company that we work with at the CREST network that did 1,000 jobs last year, going from 60% to even 70%, that's 100 jobs, 120 jobs. If you're talking about 1,200 leads, or let's just say it was 1,000, it was 1,000 jobs. So that would have been 1,200, 1,300 leads. That's a lot of big difference. At $8,000 average per job, we're talking about an extra $1 million by closing ratios going up by 10%. So I wouldn't recommend necessarily a plumber game where you're paying for leads. You want to pay 33-mile radius or any of these other SEO type where you're paying for leads or pay per clicks. That's up to you. There's an analysis that I've done on some of those companies that I could work out with you. Again, bill@thecrestnetwork.com. We could discuss that. But if you're going to pay plumbers, I would recommend you pay for signed up jobs. Now, whether you pay right up front when you invoice or when you get paid, that's up to you. It's all about your cash flow. Obviously, what do the plumbers want? They would prefer to get their money up front. If you're doing a ratio where you're doing a percentage of the job, you really can't pay them up front. You could give them something up front, like a couple of $100, and then when you finally bill for the job or when you collect the money, you can give them the balance then and kind of work out the details. Anecdotally, I found it works best if you just come up with a flat number and you pay them right away. That has worked the best for a lot of the companies we work with, but only you could decide that. Okay. So we've talked about the three most important questions: how much, how, and when. You have to have answers to those before you go out there. As you know, if you've watched any of my webinars before, especially when it comes to money, I'm always going to give you the missteps, the tricks, the traps, and here's what we're going to talk about now. We want a referral fee misstep coaching guide. You could always make mistakes in these programs, and if you do, these programs are going to cause immense pain and risk to your business. Excuse me. Some of those programs include, or some of those mistakes include, trying to match your competitor's plumbing fee. If you always just go out there and say, well, if he's paying $1,200, I'll give you $1,200, that could cause a lot of problems. We call that, and you'll hear Dick refer to that all the time, as a race to the bottom. Now, why could that be a race to the bottom? Well, maybe your company isn't structured the same way his company is. Maybe your company only does mitigation, and his company might do mitigation, environmental, like asbestos, lead, mold. They might also do contents pack outs and storage, and they might also do the reconstruction. So they might be a true full service company. If they're a full service company, if they get a job from a plumber, instead of $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 just for mitigation, which is what your company would get, their company might get $20,000 to $25,000 because they're going to have a chance to get 3 or 4 bites at that apple. If there's recon to be done, if there's asbestos to be done, if there's a pack out to be done. So if they could get $25,000 from a job and you could only get $8,000 from a job, it stands to reason they could pay more. So how are you going to compete with that guy? Well, yeah, you could become a full service company. That's one way you could compete. And then you could afford to pay what he pays. But you could also do things like offering that plumbing company different options. And you've heard me and Dick talk about different ways that you can make yourself competitive. If you want, send Dick an email or myself an email. Dick's email is dick@thecrestnetwork.com, asking for ways to make yourself more attractive to plumbers. I'm sure Dick can forward you either a webinar that he's done or some sort of podcast that can give you all those answers. But make sure you understand, don't try to just automatically match. Your 1,200 might be different from his 1,200, and your 1,200 might put you out of business, okay? And if you're paying for leads and not just jobs, that could put you out of business. If you think you're going to stimulate the plumbers to pay them more just by giving you leads, and you think that's a way to, because no matter what, you're going to close X percent, that's really not true. You might be closing exactly the exact number, and the plumber might be doing a good job vetting those leads out for you. But if there's no risk for him to send you the crappy leads, and if he's going to make money sending you the really crappy leads, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get the ones you're getting now, plus the crappy leads, plus the really crappy leads. So your closing ratio is going to go way down, but the amount of money you're paying out of pocket is going to go way up, which means your cost of acquisition, that old number I keep talking about, is going to skyrocket. That's going to put you in the poorhouse. So just getting more leads, there's more to it than just saying, well, if I'm getting 2 jobs for every 3 leads I'm getting now, if I pay the plumber to give me 6 leads, that's going to turn into 4 jobs. That math doesn't work. They call that deductive reasoning, and deductive reasoning does not work in the world of economics. It just doesn't. Another thing that you have to really, really be careful of is trying to get too creative on alternative incentives for the lead source. We talked about before those little FOMOs, fear of missing out, or the gimmicks or the contests. I know guys that do contests with plumbers where they say, every lead you give me, I'm going to put your name in the hat. And at the end of the quarter, I'm going to auction off X. That X could be a dirt bike, or it could be an off-road vehicle. I know a guy who used to auction off a Harley Davidson. Now, if you're doing that just to generate leads, again, you're disincentivizing the plumber to give you good leads. You're incentivizing that plumber or that referral source to give you garbage leads. Because if it's a lead generation contest, you're going to get lots of garbage leads. Your guys are going to spend a lot of time running around. You're not going to raise your closing ratios. You're going to make the closing ratios really go down. You're going to be using a lot of resources, and you're going to be spending a lot of money on this prize you're giving out that's not going to have what I call an equal return on investment. And that's what cost of acquisition is. It's return on investment calculation. So you have to be really careful. I'm not saying don't do contests, but if you want to do contests, you want to do it on jobs, not on leads. And if you want to do contests, I would do contests that are a lot different. I would do much more long-term contests, 6 months or annual contests. Hold a nice event at the end of the year for all your plumbers and then give out prizes. And you could give out prizes that make it look like the Oscars, largest single lead, largest single job we did, most number of jobs, craziest job, like make it fun for them and give out prizes that way and give out little incentives. Otherwise, if you'll see in that picture down below, otherwise you're going to be so indebted to these plumbers that you're going to be handing over the keys to your kingdom to them. You can't ever compromise. Plumbing referrals should be B2B, should be their business giving your business. And you have to always keep that in perspective. You want to always remember the importance of keeping a arm's length distance between your business and their business. Remember, you want to use your head and your spreadsheet to figure out what works for you and your company. Don't jump in this game with both feet into the deep end of the pool if you don't know how to swim. You have to teach yourself how to swim first. And how do we do that? That euphemism for this example means everything. Answer the questions. How much am I going to pay? How am I going to pay it? And when am I going to pay it? Get yourself set up, make sure the numbers work for you, and make sure you set yourself up for success. Otherwise, you're going to be doomed for failure. On behalf of Dick Wagner and everybody at the CREST Network, I want to sincerely thank you for joining us today. And I want to thank all of you for always being part of the CREST Network. As you know, we have a podcast. It's the CREST Network. It's CREST Casts over on Spotify. We just recently reached 250 CREST Casts. We're very proud of that. Please stop in there. They're open to the public. You don't have to be a CREST member to enjoy that content. And we thank you for joining us there and today. On behalf of Dick Wagner, I want to thank you, and you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.